Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Let's Talk Tuesday. Today's topic is childhood hunger, and we're here with Share Our Strength and No Kid Hungry to discuss this amazing topic, and we're super excited that you're here to listen today. My name is Jillian Grimm, and I am a junior at Las Vegas Academy, and I also serve on the NASC board and the NASSP Student Leadership Advisory Committee board as well. And next, we are going to have Alexis introduce herself.
Yes, thanks, Jillian. I'm Alexis Lawera. I'm webmaster for NASC, and I go to West Career and Technical Academy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmela Leal. I'm a senior from Baltimore, Maryland, and I also serve as the president of the Maryland Association of Student Councils, as well as serving on the Student Leadership Advisory Committee with Jillian.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Wen. I am the Youth Engagement Coordinator at Share Our Strength and with the No Kid Hungry campaign.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for being here and being a part of this conversation. First, we're going to start off with a couple of facts and just kind of lay out the groundwork for the organization of these different organizations and committees. So No Kid Hungry is a campaign under Share Our Strength, and their goal is quite literally to have no kid hungry. NASSP has adopted this organization, No Kid Hungry, as their national initiative to promote and help to raise awareness for this issue. Just for a couple starting facts, nationally, before COVID hit, 1 in 7 kids in the US lived with hunger. And now during this COVID pandemic, 1 in 4 students are going hungry every day. So in Nevada, specifically in our counties, that looks at about 27 to 43% of our students who are facing food insecurity. So now we're going to go through a couple of questions to learn more about No Kid Hungry and what we can do to help.
Yes, I actually had the first question, and I wanted to ask you, Sydney, how our schools can get involved with No Kid Hungry.
So No Kid Hungry is a national campaign. We do not like to think of the issue as something that can be one size fits all. We think that communities know best what communities need, and specifically schools know best what schools need. And so getting involved with No Kid Hungry means putting your expertise to use. So getting involved with No Kid Hungry can look like a lot of different things, whether that be signing up and taking the pledge, with NASSP and the national initiative to get the suite of resources that we've created specifically for this partnership and to get students involved. You can also sign up for our own in-house newsletter, which will come out quarterly, so once every couple of months, with a lot of different updates about campaigns that No Kid Hungry campaigns that No Kid Hungry is undertaking, whether that be Thank a Hunger Hero or our fall campaign, anything like that. That comes with its own suite of calls to actions that students can use to get the word out about No Kid Hungry and the different undertakings that we have. There's also just the obvious, tagging us in your social media posts, raising awareness at No Kid Hungry across all different platforms for consistency. Just letting people in your network know that childhood hunger is an issue that affects a lot of kids. Before the pandemic, it was 11.2 million kids, so easily could be someone sitting next to you in class, someone on your soccer team. It's a large, widespread problem that has been exacerbated by COVID-19. And so we really encourage all students to get involved with us and with our campaign.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned your social medias. I think that's a great way
promote
to
the brand.
Yeah, it's a great way to get people to know about the initiative and about your campaign. So I think that's a perfect way, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I also really love that No Kid Hungry has a spectrum of engagement per se. It's not just all or nothing. I think often when people are thinking of solving childhood hunger in the US, it's this huge daunting task. And I know us as kids and teenagers, it's just well, what could we ever do to ever contribute to anything like that? But No Kid Hungry hasn't really broken down into super specific calls to action that can range from, something that you can do while you're just scrolling day to day on social media to something that's a lot more involved in your school. So it's not just all or nothing. And you can kind of take it day by day and as much time and resources as your student council has so that it's super, super inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Carmeli and I actually had the opportunity to advocate at the Hill, obviously virtually this year with it being COVID, for these different issues, along with other education issues. So if Carmeli wants to talk a little bit about that too, I'll just throw in my little piece. It does. The way that you put that, Cindy, is so great because it isn't this like big, like, oh my goodness, I'm a student, how can I help? There's so many different ways that you can not only educate yourself, but, share those resources and put that awareness out there. Obviously, advocating at the Hill is not necessarily something that everybody does every day, but it was a great opportunity, and it really showed that if us as students care about these issues and care about issues that other students and our peers deal with, that our elected officials and people who are higher up also want to listen to what we have to say and care about these different things that we care about and that affect us. So that was my experience, at least. If Carmeli wants to share some of her experience on the Hill advocating for this as well.
Yeah, I know definitely advocacy is one of my favorite things to do. And I think it's just really important to kind of, and it doesn't even have to be like a whole Capitol Hill type thing, even just talking to members of your school board and things like that. A lot of the times, like, these people haven't been in school for a while, some of them several decades, and definitely none of them during a pandemic. So just being able to kind of let them know like your experiences and like what you're seeing kind of gives them eyes into, what life is like as a student and like what we're experiencing, and just all of the facets that like the COVID-19 pandemic have impacted, because it's not just like learning loss, it's not just like students getting sick, but there's like a whole host of like different things like mental health, and including like childhood hunger, like Cindy said, that was being exacerbated by this issue. And so just kind of calling on our officials and letting them know like, hey, these things are problems. And like, I know you guys see the numbers during like your hearings and your meetings, but like we are the people behind those numbers. Like my friends are the people behind those numbers, and being able to put that human element behind it is so incredibly important. And it's not just, made up figures that are being pulled out of thin air. Like those are real people and real students that those are representing.
I think Carmeli brings up a really great point in that a lot of times people think advocacy means going straight to the very top. Like, I'm going to write a letter to my senator, my House of Representative member, or the president themselves. Advocacy can start at the grassroots level, talking to your teacher, getting them on board with different breakfast models, or talking to your principals. Even if they don't have the ultimate deciding power, I think coalition building is something that is very important when it comes to advocacy at all different levels.
Absolutely. And I think when we're talking about that, that's such a great point of, we have to make people care about this issue. Obviously that affects so many people. And I think one of the biggest, I'm going to say wall, or the biggest prohibiting factor with dealing with this issue is kind of the stigma that's around food insecurity. And, these programs and all of those people and our peers who deal with those issues. So how would you suggest we reduce the stigma that's around food insecurity to get more people starting the conversation about this issue?
Yeah, so I think stigma is a very complex and multidimensional issue, in the sense that there is very much a human element and a society, and the way society views stigma, that provides and creates a barrier to accessing the resources that students and families need in order to meet and fulfill their needs. I'm going to speak about stigma in the context of school breakfast, because that's kind of what we focus on. There is a very big gap between kids that access lunch and then those kids that access breakfast. And that gap exists due to a number of different things, but one of them being stigma. Just because I remember when I was in high school and middle school, like, I did need to access at breakfast, but didn't want to, because I didn't want people thinking like, oh, I don't have food at home, like I'm one of the poor kids, and having that label thrust upon you when high school is already very much a stressful environment as it is. And so different ways to reduce stigma looks like a bunch of different ways. I think it has to start at a grassroots level as well. just promoting environment and culture that is conducive to students being able to ask for help when they need it and not feel judged by their peers or higher ups for accessing those kinds of meals and things like that. I did want to turn the question around to you all as well. Like, why do you think the stigma exists? And like, what can you do as an individual and in your friend group and in schools to help reduce the stigma as well? Just because you all are, not that you're stigmatized, but you are involved in that culture and you participate in it, are impacted by it. And I think that your voice in terms of trying to end the stigma is equally as important as what I have to say as someone that works on this campaign and deals with stigma as well.
I think you're so correct in saying that is a world we live in. I think that there's a lot of different issues that, because of the stigma around them, are not being dealt with, or people are too afraid to do whatever it could be because of that. So I think that's a very real issue. I think, like you mentioned, when you were in high school and that was your situation, I think that a lot of students feel similar to that, is they don't want to be seen a certain way, or they feel that other people will not accept them because of needing that extra help. And I think that just in general, that asking for help piece is hard for people to do, and acknowledging like, at this point in my life, or in this certain aspect of my life, this is where I need that help. So I think definitely being more encouraging of maybe not even like highlighting it, like, okay, this is a thing, but making sure that everybody knows about the resources that we have. But also opening a space where we can talk about it, because I think if we're not talking about it, then that increases the stigma around it even more. And if we're able to have those open conversations of this is, it's not, kind of by making it not a thing, by saying, okay, that's just, this is a classmate who does need to get breakfast and, maybe I don't, or that kind of openness. I think if we address it from where it's at, we can kind of open that conversation and not make it so much of a big deal.
I 100% agree with Jillian. And I think another issue that I noticed was that sometimes we just ignore it, and we don't recognize that there are kids out there and like kids at our schools and the people that we know that don't have those resources at home. And I think for me, at least, it wasn't until I got to like high school, to like now recently, until Jillian mentioned you and your initiative, that I knew that there's programs like that out there. And so like you skip breakfast, you're like, okay, I didn't know that we had like other resources, there's other things we can do, and there's other ways we can help our peers and our friends. And I think that sometimes it's hard because the stigma is just, you're just like, no, I didn't have time to eat at home, so that's why I'm just coming here, I'm just gonna eat this or whatever. And they ignore it, and they try to push it away like it's some big bad thing. And yes, it's a very big issue, but like we shouldn't bring people down for it, and we should start helping each other and bringing more awareness to it and helping get the resources known and pushed out there so everyone can know about it. And so it's not such a scary thing to talk about. So kids, we can actually help each other out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think you guys bring up a really good point, that like awareness around these programs, because if people don't know about them, like it doesn't matter how many programs we have, how robust they are, what they're doing, if nobody's actually like knowing about them and utilizing them. So first off, the awareness is super, super important. But I think kind of surrounding the stigma, also letting students who are in these situations, like making sure that you're also giving them agency, and not you're just like assuming the things that they need, or assuming that what they want. So like there are definitely going to be some students who are going to make it like very much of a non-issue, and like they just want to do it very discreetly, and like that's just them. And then there are other students who really want like their friend groups to like bring in breakfast, and then they all have like breakfast at school, and like make it more like normal, and like calling more attention to it and making it seem more normal. But that's also, again, like our very like student preferences. So not just assuming that like a student wants it either way, and making sure that we have like school cultures where students are able to be advocates for themselves and have that agency. I know, I'm not sure how it is in Nevada exactly, but I know personally in my school district, we have a ton of students who living in Baltimore are free and reduced meal students. And so like kind of the culture around like food insecurity is, I don't want to say like non-existent, but like nobody really thinks anything of it for the most part. Like everyone gets breakfast like in the morning, and like everyone else sits together before COVID, of course, sits together and like gets food. So it's a little bit different where I am. But again, like we were talking about before, it's not a one size fits all type of, mold that you can kind of just like throw on stigma like at different schools. Like stigma manifests itself in so many different ways.
I will add, one of these solutions that No Kid Hungry really pushes for is this idea of breakfast after the bell. So allowing either breakfast to be served in all classrooms in a school, or grab and go, where people can just grab the breakfast food that they need and then go off to class, instead of having to like physically go in a line and then sit in the cafeteria and eat that breakfast. Or second chance breakfast, where there is a period of time set aside where you can go get that breakfast after classes. And so if these programs are implemented, and it's something that is just, I don't want to use the word normalized, but it is common enough that people, no matter what your socioeconomic background is, if you have the opportunity to eat breakfast in the classroom, like why not? And making it so that it's across the board something that people do, and not just because you are food insecure or what have you.
Yes, and I know, hopefully I'm not the only one that has like never heard or like didn't know too much about like the programs offered at my school. My dad didn't know. It was just hard for us to find different resources and stuff, so we went such a long time without knowing that there's so many different things offered, and you struggle to find and get the help you need. And so I wanted to ask if you knew any food programs that were offered to students, or like how we can start one at our schools.
So all of the meals that are provided for you if you attend a public school is offered at the federal level through the USDA child nutrition programs. Those are administered by the USDA, and then specifically more with state agencies that actually distribute and like handle the logistics of them. So there are 3 different programs that provide the meals that you probably know and love and utilize in your school. So there's the breakfast program, the National School Lunch Program, and then the summer food service programs, which provide meals outside of school times over the summer. However, with COVID, we have pretty much implemented a summer model all throughout the school year, just because you are obviously not picking up food in person anymore. So we're operating kind of like as a summer meals model. And so those are the 3 kind of big programs that bring food to schools. And those are the programs that, if you attend a public school, that you are most used to. So in terms of starting a program, it's not really necessary just because it is provided. The biggest impact you can have in starting a program is through summer meals. And so that can look like a number of different things, whether that be reaching out to an organization and seeing if they are able to provide those meals, or figuring out host locations. So like summer meal sites are commonly held in parks or in libraries, or maybe like in a parking lot outside of a school or something like that. So figuring out different locations for these summer meal services, and just promoting the fact that these summer meal sites exist in the first place, because I don't know, summer meals is one of the least accessed programs, despite the fact that summer hunger is very much a real and prominent problem that exists across communities across the United States. And so really promoting summer meals, as well as just, again, that gap between people that access lunch but don't access breakfast. So a lot of different avenues to talk about, to promote, to really hype up.
Yes, thank you. I didn't realize those. But yeah, because I didn't even know that they had summer programs in the first place. And so I think that right there helps a lot of people just to know, and for us to promote that there's, after school ends, that you're not left alone. You still have options and opportunities.
Yeah, that's great information. I think as you were speaking, Cindy, kind of bringing light to what can we do as a school and as school leaders. I think even like kind of touching on what Carmeli said was, as school leaders, as maybe, you know, we're not starting a program, but kind of, as she mentioned, you know, it's not one size fit all. So kind of adapting and figuring out, you know, looking at your student body and looking at your school culture and figuring out, you know, how can I adapt and how can I promote these and make the best use of these programs that we already have. I think that that could be something that as school leaders we can look at and work with our administrations and different things like that to make sure that we're presenting these programs in the best light that we can, so that way they are getting the best use and the students who need them are getting the resources that they need. So I think that that would be a great way to kind of implement that. It's not starting a program, but just making the programs we have better.
Yeah, and kind of going along with what we were talking about towards the very, very beginning as well, like social media. Like social media is so huge. We're on it all the time. And like it can just be as easy as like just a post on your story being like, hey, just in case anybody needs this, like here are the programs for this summer, and just kind of like reposting them like every week, every other week, and just kind of like reminding people that they're there for them in case they want. Or if you have like, you know, certain people in your life that you know that are in these types of situations, if you feel comfortable, like just sending them a quick text and be like, hey, like I'm just making sure like you know about these. Like it doesn't have to be like a huge like conversation, like a whole thing and a half, but you can just like text them or even like DM them like a link to your story and be like, hey, just wanted to make sure that you saw this, just in case you need it. And like that can be like the end of that conversation. And like they don't even have to respond to you or anything like that. Just like letting them know is sometimes just helpful enough.
And then tying in the advocacy piece and the stigma piece with the idea of, like Jillian mentioned, improving the programs that already exist. There is something that is called the Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP. So basically what CEP is if you live in a district or in an area that has more than 40% of students that are free and reduced lunch eligible, you can apply for CEP, and what that does is it makes all breakfast and lunch meals completely free for all students, and it reduces the burden of having to individually apply, or households having to individually apply, and so that really reduces the stigma just because everyone is receiving and accessing those meals, and you can advocate for it just due to the fact that states are required to post information on schools and districts that are CEP or have a certain number or threshold of free and reduced lunch students that attend that school. So that information is accessible. You can use it to take it to school leaders, superintendents, all the way to the top if that is what tickles you. Do whatever to get CEP out, the word about CEP out, just because it is a relatively newer program. And so not a lot of people know about it. And so that is a great thing to advocate for, as well as, like I mentioned before, breakfast after the bell models that are simple to implement. You just got to get the right people on board. So a lot of different ways to improve upon the programs that already exist.
Quick question about CEP, actually. Is that something that's implemented at like a school district level? Like that would be true for all schools within that school district, or is that like just approved at the school district level and it would apply to just like a single school? If you know, if not, then.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but from my understanding, it does not apply to just a single school. It would apply to the district itself.
And we've been touching on this a little bit already, but do you have any other ideas for how we can work together with our schools and with our fellow peers to promote the programs that we already have?
Yeah, so we mentioned it a lot throughout the course of this call, but feel free to bring in your own ideas as well. But just this idea of like utilizing social media, like this is a very unique opportunity that didn't exist in the past. Like your generation and partially my generation, I don't know, I identify with Gen Z and millennials depending on what situation we're in. But technology has been just so great for getting the word out around things like around promoting different programs, or if there is a bill that's about to be passed in Congress, like being able to share that information and like getting people on board or getting people off board, depending on where you view the situation. I think information is it's at our fingertips in this day and age, and we should really take advantage and utilize that. Again, we tend to think of hunger as something that doesn't exist in the United States just because this is a very prosperous country in a lot of different ways. And we also tend to think of hunger as a symptom of a cycle of poverty and not the actual issue at hand. But I think tackling smaller aspects of the larger issue is equally as important as well.
For sure. And I know at the beginning you were also talking about the different newsletters and different things that No Kid Hungry has as well. If you want to speak to a little bit like what kind of information that those newsletters and things provide and what students can expect if they sign up for it.
Yeah, so our newsletters are a great source of information for what No Kid Hungry specifically is up to, whether that be, for example, in the fall, we tend to do a Dine, Shop, Share campaign where we partner with different restaurants and food service industry leaders in order to get the word out about No Kid Hungry. Like if you eat at this restaurant, part of the proceeds will go to No Kid Hungry. So a lot of different calls to actions that are included within each individual campaign. So if we ever need a wealth of students to send us thank you notes to post on social media or things like that, you can access those calls to actions through our newsletter, as well as just kind of know what we're up to and how we are distributing both the grants that distributing the money that we have received in donations to different organizations, and just like keeping us accountable, letting you all know that the money is being put to good use, different calls to actions that you can do, and other things like that.
I just wanted to reiterate what Carmeli said earlier about texting your friends and emailing them as well. That was an idea like that popped up in my head when she mentioned that, was because I know some people don't have social media. Like a lot of my friends don't have social media or don't have access to that or certain resources like that. And I think also by messaging your friends and reaching out to them, like my friend the other day just messaged me about a scholarship she found out about that I could possibly qualify for. She's like, here, look into this. And so I think reaching out to your peers, like personally, like one-on-one, or if you see them one day again, face-to-face, going up to them and telling them about No Kid Hungry and about the newsletter and like everything. That's just for everyone watching this. I think that's a great way to also get the word out, especially to your friends and peers that don't have access to social media and stuff like that.
I think that's such a great point, because it's true. Even in this age of social media, not everybody does, especially being students. I know that that's a lot of rules that people have and they're not included. So that's great to include everybody. Cindy, we really appreciate you being a part and bringing your expertise to this conversation today. Thank you to Alexis and Carmeli also for participating and giving us all these great ideas and things that we can take back to our schools and implement. We will put links and such things to all these wonderful things that we talked about today in the bio of this video, so you guys can access those. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you can either email Alexis or I to have those answered. And of course, check out the No Kid Hungry site for more information. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.